Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. It's that time of the year again when the festive spirit is palpable. The hustle, bustle and the joy of Diwali celebrations is visible everywhere. Flowers, decorative items, diyas and sparkling lights, also a range of gift items. The markets are full as Diwali shopping peaks. This optimism and festive spirit impacts not just the social and cultural environment, but also has a huge impact on the economy. Consumer sentiment plays an important role in economic activity and is often seen as a barometer of the country's economic performance. So how are Diwali festivities energizing the market momentum this time around? Also, how is the consumer spending and economic activity during the current festive season projected to add to the country's economic growth? We'll try and understand this and much more from two distinguished guests who join us on the program. I'm delighted to welcome Professor Arvind Mohan, Department of Economics, University of Lucknow, and Dr. S.P. Sharma, Chief Economist and Director of Research, PhD, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program, and I wish you a very happy Dhanteras as well. Professor, Diwali in India lights up not just homes and the streets. It's set to ignite the economy as well in multiple ways so that they reach every part of the country. To begin with, explain to us and our viewers Diwali's influence on the economy, making it an important season of financial activity as much as it is about the festivity countrywide.
A festival like Diwali has a huge bearing on the demand situation of the economy. And what we have been observing for some time in Indian context in particular is that there has been some demand contraction. And when demand contracts, a festival like Diwali is the best possible kind of a boon for the economy. And that is what is happening and likely to happen for Indian economy in this Diwali also. First impact that we will observe in this Diwali and are already observing is the implication for the bullion market. Gold and silver are significantly going to be impacted. And one important reason for this is that India is the biggest generator of demand, particularly for gold.
Right.
And we will see that already gold is booming and is likely to, maybe in coming months, starting from now, we will see that it maybe around 5,000 rupees worth of hike in gold demand is likely to happen. That is one. Silver is likely to be impacted even more because there are significant global reasons also. The revival of the Chinese economy, chances of sustained economic growth in US and Europe, and then Indian boost coming from Diwali and other factors. We can see that maybe in coming months, we may find that silver might at least touch 1,25,000 rupees for a kg. So the chances of impact on silver are likely to be much higher than even gold. Now, that is the bullion kind of situation. But for the rest of the economy, whether it is automotives, whether it is people like maybe from the informal sector, like those who are making maybe potteries, etc., for all kind of gift items. So every possible segment of the economy is likely to be boosted. And as the demand rises, the chances are that productions segment will also respond simultaneously. This will impact the GDP situation in the economy. It will impact employment situation in the economy. So at least in the temporary sense, there will be a significant boost for temporary employment, significant intervention in GDP growth. So all-round intervention, all-round positive change in the economy is likely to happen. And
Sure.
This is not merely going to be a very temporary kind of transition, because once a demand kind of growth story begins, it does have a potential for igniting multiplier as well as the accelerator. And the two together are likely to boost the economy significantly. And I think that is what we are likely to observe. From here onwards, I'm sure that economic growth will see a further boost, and maybe the kind of projections that we were seeing for some time, that Indian economy will observe a particular growth rate. I think Diwali festival is going to be a major contributor in that process.
Right. We'll come to the projections and, of course, particularly the RBI projection in just a while. But Dr. Sharma, coming to you for your response, we'll also talk about the sector-specific responses. But let me first get an overview from you on the festive season so far. Do you think this season is going to bring cheer to the Indian economy as is anticipated? What is your sense on the current consumer spending and the economic activity that is being witnessed?
Yes, Tina, because this Diwali is celebrated on the back of a strong demand trajectory and strong growth, which we have observed during the last 3 years, particularly in the post-COVID years. We grew at 9.7% in 21-22, then 7%, then 8.2%. So on the back of this more than 8% growth rate during the last 3 years, this Diwali is becoming more and more lucrative, I would say, for the consumers because they have spending power on the back of such kind of income trajectory and the growth trajectory of the economy. And right now, the economic fundamentals are very strong and steady, and IIP numbers and the core infrastructure, all these activities are growing at around 4.5 or 5% in the recent months also. And there is strong external sector also on the back of strong export demand and the forex of $700 billion and the stable rupee at around 83. So external sector is also very, very strong and the demand trajectory remains steady. And the investment environment, particularly the financial markets, are robust at this juncture because stock market is resilient despite the headwinds. Market is showing signs of great resilience, and the FDIs are also intact as we received more than $22 billion in the first quarter. So the whole for the whole year, the number may be at around $90 billion for the current financial year. And the GST collections are also growing at around 9-10% YOY. So all economic fundamentals are very strong, and on the back of these strong fundamentals, Diwali is becoming more and more, I would say, interesting for the consumers as they are supported by the good economic environment and the business activity. And the bank credit, particularly which shows the demand trajectory of the economy, is growing more than 15% for the current financial year and during the recent months. So that is again a sign of great demand happening in the system. And as repo rate remains stable, so expectations are that repo rate will come down in the coming months with the stability in the inflation trajectory showed by the CPI as CPI remains subdued. Though there is some spike in the last month, but expectations are that it will cool down once again in the coming months. So all the fundamentals are supporting the demand trajectory as reforms support the economy. That's why the economy supports the demand. So that is the scenario at this juncture. So ease of doing business, particularly because ease of doing business happening since the last many years, and government is removing many clauses and the stringent clause from the system. So the growth is supported by such kind of developments, and that will remain continue because IMF says that this year also we will grow 7%, and there are expectations that we will grow more than 7% or maybe somewhere between 7.5 to 8%, supported by the intact agriculture activity and the strong services sector activity. So the macroeconomic scenario is very robust despite the global headwinds, despite the geopolitical developments. Our economy remains resilient, and that is the scenario of the festive demand that we are observing a great crowd in the markets, and I think this will again boost the demand trajectory and support economic growth at higher level.
Certainly. So, there are, of course, differences in the way projections are being made about India's growth, and there are concerns and worries as well that have been cited. We'll have a conversation about that as well in the next round of questions. But Dr. Sharma, one thing that's striking is Diwali is one time which hugely benefits several sectors. What are some of the specific sectors that you see this time which are witnessing record sales and the impact of the consumption pattern having on these sectors, which are sectors that are bound to see significant growth, at least what's being anticipated so far?
Yes, consumer electronics are in a great buying space at this juncture because firstly, we have started the various domestic activities in the electronic segment, and the prices are totally rational. And second is, as mentioned by Professor Arvind Mohin, that the three segment, though the prices are very strong at this juncture, supported by the geopolitical developments, gold and silver are hovering at all-time high, but still the demand remains intact in these segments also, as people are buying such commodities for the investment purpose also going forward. So consumer electronics and the such gems and jewelry, these are major, though every area is promising of the Indian economy because demand is happening in every corner. But these two sectors are majorly observed strong during this festive demand.
Okay, Professor, coming to you now to understand about the current economic outlook and particularly with regard to the RBI's projection, which says, interestingly, the central bank has stuck to its forecast that India's economy will expand 7.2% in the year ending March 2025, despite evidences that activity has begun to taper off. This now, of course, differs, although it's just by a few points, but from the government's own projections, from projections made by other agencies as well, which have lowered the projection to somewhere between 6.5 to 7. Tell us about some of these factors which are driving the optimism behind the RBI's outlook.
See, if you are looking at the flip side to begin with, particularly auto sales, whether it is the two-wheelers or the four-wheelers, for some time we have seen that there has been a significant slowdown. Now, we are expecting that this Diwali season in particular is likely to bring it to at par. So, significant rise in purchases as far as autos are concerned is likely to happen. But the chances are that it will still remain lower than what we have seen in last several years. So auto is going to be one major challenge. If Diwali can correct it, fine. Otherwise, it will be a major, maybe negative as far as Indian growth story is concerned. Other sectors, particularly if you're looking at the software story in India, we have seen that the kind of decline which was expected in US hasn't happened. It is already reviving demand as far as software sector, software industry is concerned. Similarly, metals and other segments were also being projected to bring some significant slowdown as far as Indian economy is concerned. But that fear is going down as we are moving towards the auspicious Diwali festival, particularly the kind of boost that we are finding in the Chinese economy. Chinese economy was one of the major laggards and was expected to pull down the global economy significantly, including the Indian economy. But now, two major boosts have already happened, and we are expecting that the Chinese government will maybe push further as far as the Chinese growth story is concerned. So Chinese growth story will particularly impact global demand situation, and it will also impact the metal story. And these are two positives for India, but it will also bring in few negatives for India. One major negative is that as the Chinese economy revives, as far as the stock market is concerned, we are expecting that around $15 billion worth of withdrawal can happen from Indian stock market, and that can move to the Chinese economy. We've already seen that $5-7 billion have already been withdrawn in last month or so. A similar withdrawal is further possible, and it will all depend on the relative growth story of China and India. So if Indian growth story, as we've just been talking about, it revives, then the chances are that remaining $7-8 billion may not be withdrawn, and Indian markets may stabilize as far as stock markets are concerned. So there is a global story which is developing. The chances of recession in American economy are now as good as ruled out. Chances of further decline in the Chinese economy also seems on hold at this point of time. And if China revives, it will impact the oil story also. We are seeing significant weakness in oil prices, petroleum prices. Now, that weakening may also kind of stop for some time. So I think as far as petroleum is concerned, a price level of somewhere around 75 or less than 80 is fine for Indian economy. And given the overall demand situation in the global economy, chances are that petroleum prices will not cross 80 at least for some time. That I think is a stable factor for India. So on the whole, it can be said that the global story is likely to remain supportive. Domestic story is kind of gaining strength. There are major areas that we need to work on. Automotives is going to be one. From here onwards, my personal take will be that as far as the growth story is concerned, that's a lesser challenge for India.
Right.
Employment story is the bigger challenge, where I think significant thought has to go that unless and until our growth story is employment generating, the entire effort has little meaning.
So in that aspect, towards paying more attention to the employment aspect is something that I'll come back to you. But Dr. Sharma, on the domestic front, while the urban consumption seems to be sluggish, the rural spending is improving. At the same time, the private investment is picking up. Do you also see these as the underlying factors behind the RBI's bullishness? Because it's also coming under a lot of, criticism for not changing the interest rate, for, continuing to stick to the growth projection at 7.2%.
Yes, you rightly said that rural demand is strong as compared with the urban demand, because the rural story is now becoming more and more strong on the back of the strong agriculture growth during the last 5-6 years. Barring the last year, there was a growth of more than 3% continuously for 2018, 2019, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. But last year, agriculture sector grew at around 1%. So this year, again, expectations are that agriculture will grow somewhere between 5 to 6%. So that is supporting the demand trajectory. And second is the export. Export is also becoming robust in the agriculture segment. Now we have at around $50 billion of exports from the agri and food economy. So this is supporting the demand, particularly the rural areas, the rural consumption with the enhanced income levels of the rural youth, rural people. So going forward, we are expecting that rural demand will support the overall economic growth in the coming times also, as government is doing a lot for the reforms for the food sector, and these exports are expected to become more robust in the coming times, and the agriculture sector will again show the good signs of resilience and grow more than 3-4% in the coming years also. Though the urban demand is also intact, not that much decelerating, though sluggish, but the rural economy will definitely going to become a major support for the overall growth trajectory of the Indian economy, as anticipated that according to the IMF, we will grow more than 6.5% in the next 5-6 years. And China will grow, I believe, at around 4% on an average, as projected by IMF in its latest report of 23rd April 2020, 23rd of October 2024. So going forward, India's story is becoming robust as India now influences the new world economic order, and that's why the world is looking at India for its growth parameters, for its growth process, its thought process to handle the economic indicators despite the global headwinds, despite the geopolitical developments, despite the worsening of the geopolitics. India's growth remains intact, and that will continue not only for the years but for the decades till India becomes Viksit Bharat by 2047.
Certainly. So we hope this Diwali will ignite lights in the Indian economy as well. But one area of concern, Professor Mohan, has been, and coming from the global economists, a lot of agencies have also cited concerns about the key interest rate remaining unchanged by the RBI for almost 2 years. And I'm quoting one of the global economists. He says there's a risk of a policy misstep if you keep rates higher for longer. Explain to us the reasons why RBI has not been joining the global wave of changing the interest rates. Also, how much merit do these concerns by the leading global economists have?
Yes, I would say because inflation too subsiding, but concerns about the global headwinds and likely impact on India's fuel economy or India's food sector can't be ruled out. though we are growing robust and we grew at around 6.7% in the first quarter, so growth remains intact despite this growth rate of 6.5% of the repo rate. So I believe this is the rational decision by the RBI. And going forward, we are expecting more calibrated decisions in the coming times. If the inflation trajectory comes down and stables at around 4% or less than 4% for continuously for 2-3 months, then there is no reason for RBI to remain status quo or keep the rates high at this level of 6.5%.
Professor,
That inflation trajectory will come down and settle at around 4% for many years. Then the RBI will be able to reduce the repo rate in the month of, I would say, January or February or before March. We are expecting there is a cut in the repo rate by Reserve Bank of India.
Okay. Professor, a related question on sustaining long-term growth. The RBI does expect revival in demand in this ongoing festival season. It's a 3-month-long period. But the fact that it will culminate in the next few days, will it be enough to sustain the long-term growth which touches the number that has been pitted by the central bank?
See, Indian economy and the global economy today face significant challenges. So, merely because Diwali festival is there, I don't think that will be enough to maybe recreate or sustain the demand level that we have been wanting. So, the challenge continues. And as far as our domestic story is concerned, I think we are moving on track. So I don't see any major shock coming from within the domestic economy. So our growth trajectory is fine. But at the same time, we will have to look at the chances of global slowdown, particularly Europe as of now is not stable. China at least is beginning to revive, but is not very sure that it will remain stable despite 2 major boosts that the government has given to the economy. At the same time, American economy is showing some robustness that is good for India. So I think there will be need for sustained intervention, sustained push, both from the fiscal side as well as from the monetary side. As far as the monetary side is concerned, I think Reserve Bank has to become proactive now. At least should become reactive. We have already seen some interest rate decline from the American Federal Reserve. We have similarly seen reduction in interest rate in Europe also. So it is high time that we should also begin to bring down interest rates in India. Bringing interest rates down is important for 2 reasons. One, the cost of production for the domestic economy and the kind of sentiments which are needed in Indian economy, it will provide a boost to that. Also, India is a major exporter of number of goods. High interest rate will gradually begin to pinch because the global economy has already brought interest rates down. So I think it's time that RBI has to maybe give us a glimpse, give Indian economy and the global economy a glimpse that what kind of interest rate reduction we can see in maybe 6 months' time or 1 year's time. I think next RBI policy should certainly bring interest rate down by maybe 25 to 50 percentage points. It's extremely important. That is one part of the story. Monetary intervention is needed. RBI has to play its role. This time, it needs to be reactive because the world has done it. Next time, it has to be proactive.
Right, that's something that we'll have to wait for. But I'll come to the unemployment aspect that you touched upon in your last answer. This is a challenge despite India being one of the fastest growing large economies. Unemployment poses a deep crisis. The government does acknowledge it. But what is the long-term macro vision to tackle the challenges and the problem of joblessness in a country which is growing at such a fast pace? How are we, what is the vision that we have to deal with this problem, Professor? If you could enlighten us.
See, we all know that in the 70s, when Indian economy grew by 1%, it resulted in employment generation of, or increase in employment of 0.4%. Today, for 1% growth in GDP, employment generation is much less than 0.01%. is completely a jobless growth story, meaning such high GDP that we are talking about, 5%, 6%, 7%, 8% at different point of time, it literally has no meaning. Because this growth story is not happening for 140 crore people of the country. And that is where your question of what kind of maybe vision India needs. My personal take is that it is time for a paradigm shift. Since the first plan till now, we have been consistently focusing on the objective of growth, and every time, objective employment generation has been sacrificed on the altars of growth. This story needs to change. And what can we do? Idea is exactly what we initiated for ourselves right at the beginning of after independence, and particularly after 1991. We had been talking about second generation reform since 91 at least. That second generation reform hasn't happened the way it should have unfolded as of now. I think it is high time that this growth story needs to change, and we have to focus on the remaining aspects of reforms. And the remaining aspects certainly are: one, rural development, particularly focusing on agriculture and cottage industry. That's one major pillar that we have to unleash, unfold. Second equally important pillar is human development, that is health and education. I think first engine has been truly unfurled in India, has been ignited, and it has done its job. But even the first engine, the growth story that industry and service sector has given to this country, even that cannot be sustained unless we open the remaining two engines of rural development and human development. These two engines individually have as much capacity as the first engine had. So it's high time that we truly ignite these two engines the way we can. And my take is there are good number of low-hanging fruits. Let's focus on that. If we start focusing on those low-hanging fruits, I think India's growth story, a double-digit growth, and that too, that kind of growth which will be employment generating. If you
Absolutely. You're right. And in that aspect, Dr. Sharma, I'll take one last comment from you on when we are dealing with challenges, we can't leave everything to the public sector. How can the private sector do its bit to also deal with this problem so that it does not cause any kind of hindrance to our growth story?
Yes, because you rightly said that public sector can't do everything, and private sector has to come forward to support the growth trajectory, and that is happening, and private sector is becoming robust. We have observed that some private investments are happening on the back of ease of doing business, as they have removed more than 40,000 clauses during the last 3-4 years from the system, and they are decriminalizing the various acts. So these are significantly impacting the trajectory of business reforms and the sentiments of the private sector to move forward and to invest more and more. Though there are challenges from the global front, but the private sector remains optimistic about the India's growth story, and that has started, and that is also reflecting in the data that private investments are now becoming visible. And going forward, there is strong expectation that with the growth becoming more strong and stable in the coming years, the trajectory of private investments will also become robust and support the growth at a higher level. And as India's story remains strong, and India will be the largest economy by 2027 and a 7 trillion economy by 2030. So on these expectations, our GDP size of GDP is going to be doubled in the next 5-6 years. So this is again attracting the investors to invest more, so that the fruits of such growth trajectory and such expansion are percolated at the ground level, and their expectations and their plans and their strategies are becoming visible and strong in the direction of the Indian economy.
Okay, so with that hope, we'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again, Professor Mohan, Dr. Sharma, for joining us on the program, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. I'd like to end the program by wishing both of you a very happy Diwali. To you viewers, have a very happy and safe Diwali. Thank you for your time.
programs of Sunset TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to like and share them.